Hey beauties and bees, welcome back to the show. Okay, today, get comfortable. If you're in the middle of your skincare right now, cleanser, toner, serum, whatever your nightly ritual is, slow it down for me. Because tonight's story isn't the kind you sprint through. This story is a slow drive, the kind where the road gets quiet and you start wondering if you missed your turn, or if something is making sure you don't find it. We're not talking about a haunted house you can actually avoid. We're talking about a highway. The kind of place you have to pass through whether you want to or not. And if something appears in your rearview mirror, if something lands on your roof, if something starts whispering through the static on your radio, you just have to keep driving and hope that when you reach the other side, you're still alone in your car. Tonight, we're going to Malaysia's most infamous highway, the Karak Highway. Before we continue tonight's story, I want to quickly share something I genuinely need every time I travel, especially for this channel. So for Beauty and the Beasts, I'm constantly coordinating with my editors and illustrators who work really hard behind the scenes. And even when I'm traveling, work doesn't stop. The moment I land, I usually need to open my laptop, take calls, and message my team right away to make sure everything is running smoothly. And that is why I always use Saily. If you've never used an eSIM before, it's basically a digital SIM card, no physical SIM, no waiting in line at the airport, no dealing with people selling SIM cards outside stations. Yeah, so it's really convenient. Before my trip, I just download the Saily app, select the country I'm traveling to, choose a data plan, and enter my code BEAUTYBEASTS for 15% off. Everything is set up before I even board the plane. When I land, my data activates automatically. What I really like about Saily is how convenient it is. Once the eSIM is installed, you don't need to install a new one for every country. They have affordable plans in over 200 destinations, which helps you significantly reduce or even completely avoid roaming fees. So if you're visiting multiple countries, you can also get regional or global plans and travel with the same eSIM the entire time. And if something ever comes up, they have 24/7 chat support, plus a full refund if your device turns out not to be eSIM compatible. So if you're traveling anytime soon and need reliable data the moment you land, whether it's for work or just peace of mind, I really recommend Saily. You can get 15% off your Saily data plan with my code BEAUTYBEASTS. So download the Saily app or go to saily.com/beautybeasts. The link is at the top of the description and pinned in the comments, so go check it out. Before we get into the encounters, we need to understand this place. The Karak Highway, or the KL Karak Expressway, cuts through the wilderness of the Titiwangsa Mountains. It's about 60 kilometers long and a major route out of KL, Kuala Lumpur, to the east. So during the day, it's just a road. It's busy, normal, a functional road. But at night, it feels like the highway changes personality. The air gets colder, the fog rolls in, so thick that your headlights can't light the way ahead. The trees press close on both sides, and the canopy swallows the sky. But here is what the tourism boards don't tell you. The Titiwangsa Mountains aren't just mountains. For the Orang Asli, the original people who lived here for 8,000 years, the mountains were alive, inhabited. They called the spirits Ye. Spirit guides who lived in the peaks, the rivers, the trees, who communicated through dreams, who kept the balance between humans and the land. And there were others, the Penunggu, guardian spirits of specific places, caves, forests, mountains, and they were evil, not originally, but they had rules. And if you crossed into their territory without permission, well, I will later tell you what happens. In Malaysian folklore, when the delicate line between the human world and the spirit world is crossed, when you trespass into their living spaces, a conflict ensues. Some say the old ways required offerings before you broke ground on sacred land. Some say the spirits needed to be asked. In the 1970s, when they blasted a tunnel through this mountain, when they paved over forest that had stood for 130 million years, did anyone ask permission? The construction workers who built this highway reported strange things. Equipment failures, workers who refused to return, accidents with no explanation. But the government needed the road. Progress couldn't wait. So they finished the highway, opened it to traffic. And the accidents began almost immediately. And at first, they were explainable. Sharp curves, wet roads, driver fatigue. But the frequency was strange. And then came February 28th, 1990, the night Karak earned its reputation. It happened at kilometer 30.9, just 5 kilometers from the Genting Sempa Tunnel, right at the border between Selangor and Pahang. An express bus was descending a hill, fully loaded with passengers. The driver pressed the brakes. Nothing. He pressed harder. Nothing. Brake failure. Total brake failure. And this happened on a downhill slope with a bus full of people. The bus picked up speed. The driver had no way to stop it. It struck 2 cars first, sent them spinning, and then it collided head-on with a truck. But this wasn't just any truck. It was an FRU vehicle, Federal Reserve Unit, riot police. 11 officers were inside. They were from Troop 4B on their way from the police training center in Kuala Lumpur to Kuala Terengganu. An operational readiness drill, routine. They never made it. The impact was so violent that the FRU truck was driven beneath the bus. And imagine that for a second, a truck crushed under a bus with 11 men inside. But it wasn't over. A fuel tanker was coming up behind them. The driver saw the wreck, tried to swerve, tried to stop, but he couldn't. The tanker slammed into the pile, and then the chain reaction began. A lorry, 2 taxis, 6 cars, 12 vehicles in total. Metal crumpling, glass shattering, fuel spilling across the asphalt. When it finally stopped, when the last vehicle came to rest, 17 people were dead. 11 of them were police officers, men who woke up that morning, put on their uniforms, and climbed into a truck for a routine assignment. They never saw it coming. The wreckage was so severe that vehicles from both directions were trapped in a massive jam for 5 hours. No one could get through. No one could get out. Police called it one of the worst road disasters since 1970. It remains the worst highway disaster in Malaysian history since the Karak Highway opened to traffic in 1979. And after the worst tragedies, that's when the stories get louder. And it doesn't matter if you believe in ghosts. After something like that, a place can feel changed. And here's the thing about Penunggu spirits. They tend to congregate in places where death is frequent. And with each death, the place grows darker. The spirits multiply. The original guardians of the mountain are now joined by every soul who died screaming on this asphalt. Some say those souls are scattered. That when you die in terror, sudden, confused, not understanding what happened, your soul fragments. Pieces of you left behind on the road, in the wreckage, in the trees. Now we need to talk about the one thing people report seeing the most, because Karak Highway has a way of introducing itself. Not with a scream, but something more subtle. A set of headlights, a car, a bright yellow Volkswagen Beetle. The story always begins the same way. It's late, past midnight, the road is quieter than it should be. Your headlights cut through fog in short, dark tunnels. And you're doing what everyone does on Karak, trying to get through it, trying not to stop, and trying not to think too much. And then you see it, a slow-moving car in your lane, a vintage yellow Beetle. It's not swerving, it's not broken down. It's just going a little too slow, like it doesn't care that you're behind it, like it's forcing you to hit your brakes. And most drivers do what anyone would do. They get annoyed, they overtake, they move into the next lane, they pass it. But then when they glance sideways, just to throw a quick angry glare at the driver, they're hit with a sudden realization that makes them keep driving. Once they overtake it, the yellow Beetle appears in front of them again. Same lane, same speed. People call it the infinite loop. You speed up, it's there. You slow down, it matches your speed. And no matter what you do, it doesn't stay behind you. That car is leading you. Because some versions of the story say it isn't just reappearing. It's trying to pull you deeper into Karak, further into the darker stretch, like it's guiding you toward a part of the highway that doesn't feel mapped. And this is where the warning comes in. Locals say, don't overtake it, because once you pass it, you feel the urge to look inside, to check who's driving, to confirm it's real. And people who take that glance swear they see one of two things. Either there is no one behind the wheel, an empty driver's seat, or there is someone, but the driver doesn't look right. The silhouette that doesn't match the posture of a living person. And like every Karak legend, the origin changes depending on who tells it. Some say it belongs to a husband who died on that highway, chasing his wife, chasing betrayal, chasing the last conversation he never got to finish. Some say it was a family that never made it home, and some link it to the 1990 pileup accident. But the yellow Beetle isn't the only thing people see on Karak. There are other encounters. And what's strange is how specific they are, how consistent. This one comes up a lot in online forums, enough that it has its own nickname, the Shadow Rider. Drivers report seeing a motorcyclist dressed entirely in black. Black helmet, black jacket, black bike. He rides alongside cars, not behind them, not in front, right next to them, matching their speed perfectly. At first, people think it's just another rider, but then they notice something wrong. When they speed up, when they push 100, 110, 120 kilometers per hour, he keeps pace, effortlessly. One driver reported seeing him on her way back from Genting. She was doing 90, and this man appeared next to her. She sped up to 110, he kept up, and then she made the mistake of looking. She said when she turned her head, she could see through the visor, and there was nothing inside the helmet. No face, no head, just darkness. She screamed, swerved, and nearly hit the barrier. And when she looked again, he was gone. But here's the part that makes this story stick. The Shadow Rider always vanishes at the same place. Kilometer marker 37. Every time. And if you know the history of that spot, kilometer 37 is where a motorcyclist died in 2003. Hit by a truck, thrown from his bike, killed instantly. His family placed a small shrine there. Flowers, incense, a photo. The shrine is still there, and so apparently is he. The next encounter is worse because it doesn't just scare you, it actually makes you crash. So we need to talk about the Pontianak, because this spirit doesn't just haunt Karak Highway, she hunts it. In Malay folklore, the Pontianak is a vengeful female spirit, born from death during pregnancy or childbirth. Long dark hair, pale face, white dress. But forget Western ghosts. The sad apparition drifting through hallways. The Pontianak is not sad. She is furious. And she doesn't appear to scare you. She appears to kill you. So here's how it starts. You're driving late at night, windows up, and you smell it. Frangipani, jasmine, that sweet scent. And your brain knows something is wrong because there are no flowers here. No reason for that smell to exist inside your sealed car at 2 a.m. If you grew up in Malaysia, that's when your hands tighten on the wheel. Because frangipani and jasmine aren't just pretty scents in this part of the world. They're the flowers of death, planted in cemeteries, burned as offerings. So when that smell floods your car for no reason, it's not a warning. It means she's already here. Then you see her, a figure in white at the edge of your headlights. Still, hair swaying even when there is no wind. Your foot slams the brake, and she's gone. But here's what actually kills people. It's not the sighting, it's the swerve. When a woman appears in your headlights, you don't think, you jerk the wheel. And on Karak Highway, with its hairpin turns and sheer drops, that swerve is a death sentence. Locals say that's how she gets her victims, not by attacking them, by making them kill themselves, trying to avoid her. She doesn't need to touch you, she just needs you to see her. Okay, now here comes really creepy stories tied to the highway, so brace yourself. Of all the famous Karak Highway's Pontianak encounters, this one is probably the creepiest, and it's been told for decades. One night, a couple was driving home late. Husband behind the wheel, wife in the passenger seat. It was after midnight, and the highway was quiet. Fog drifted across the road in patches. And the husband was trying to keep a steady speed. He didn't want to be reckless, but he wanted to get through the stretch as fast as possible. And then he heard it. Not an explosion, nothing dramatic, but the steering wheel felt tugged to the left. A flat tire. He pulled onto the shoulder and parked, switching on his emergency lights. The moment the engine cut, silence rushed in. The kind that felt like nothing was living around them. His wife turned to him. What do we do? No signal, no cars. The nearest emergency call box was too far to walk to in the dark. But it was their only chance. I will walk to the call box, he said. Lock the doors, stay inside. I'll be back soon. She wanted to argue. She wanted to say, no, don't leave me here. But what choice did they have? So he got out and started walking into the fog. And she watched his silhouette get swallowed by darkness. Now it was just her, alone in a dead car at the edge of a jungle. She glanced at the clock. 1:15 a.m. She turned on the radio, tried to find a station, any station. But just static, more static. A faint voice too distorted to make out. So she turned it off. 1:20 a.m. She started imagining things, shapes moving in the fog, shadows between the trees. He'll be back any minute, she told herself. Any minute now. 1:30 a.m. Nothing happened. Just the fog rolling in and out. Just the trees swaying. But she had that heavy feeling you get when the world is just too quiet. Then she heard it. A soft scratching sound above her. She froze. Maybe it's a branch, she thought. Maybe something fell on the roof. But the sound shifted slowly from the center of the roof toward the windshield. It sounded like fingernails on metal. Her hands clamped onto the steering wheel, even though she knew she wouldn't make it far. She didn't dare look up, didn't dare move. The scratching grew louder. It was faster now. And then she heard something else, a growl. The sound turned violent, like an animal tearing into prey. A sickening ripping sound. She pressed her lips together, trying not to make a sound. Her whole body trembled as the noise continued above her. That horrible sound of something being attacked, a soft, heart-wrenching moan, a wet chewing sound like flesh being pulled apart. And then something dark dripped onto the windshield. She watched it slide down the glass in a slow, dark line. It was blood. And that's when she smelled it. Sweet flowers, so strong it made her nauseous. Her hands shook as she checked the locks again, even though she already knew they were locked. And then she saw headlights right behind her. Relief hit her so hard, she almost cried. Someone had stopped. Before she could even unlock the door, a voice cut through the night, amplified, urgent. "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle slowly. Walk toward us. Do not look back. Do you understand? Do not look back." That tone, it wasn't calm. It was afraid. "Ma'am, please step out of the car and walk toward us." Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. Cold air rushed in. The police car sat about 30 feet away, sirens silent, lights blazing. Two officers stood beside it. One waved her forward, sharp gestures like he was trying to pull her with his hands. "Walk toward us," he repeated. "Keep your eyes on me. Do not look back." She stepped out. With every step, her brain screamed at her to turn around, because her husband was out there somewhere. But the officer's voice didn't waver. "Keep moving." She was halfway there when she heard it. A wet, heavy sound, like something large shifting behind her. She stopped. "Ma'am, keep walking." But she turned her head, just a glance, just enough to see a woman crouched on the roof of her car. Her hair hanging in thick locks over a blood-stained face, white dress soaked red, limbs bent at impossible angles, knees twisted backward, spine arched too far. And beneath her was a body, a torso sprawled across the roof, torn open, head dangling off the edge, neck ripped from the shoulder. It was her husband. The Pontianac's mouth was buried in her prey. Then she paused, glanced up. Strings of blood dangled from her lips. And she slowly smiled at her. The wife fainted. The officers grabbed her as she collapsed, and they immediately sped away. When they finally approached the car left there sometime later, there was nothing on the roof. But the scratches were there, deep gouges in the metal. The roof was sticky with blood. And her husband, he never returned. Not sure if the man was really killed, but he just disappeared into the mountain that night. And there's another story that is really famous. And this one doesn't happen on the highway. It happens after. Sometime in the 90s, a well-known Malaysian radio DJ was hosting a late-night show. And you know the kind, the ones that air after midnight, when the city goes quiet and the callers get stranger. This particular show had a segment where listeners could phone in and share their experiences, ghost stories, strange encounters, things they couldn't explain. And this show was really popular. People loved hearing what others had seen. One night, a call came through. The man on the line sounded calm, polite. He said he wanted to share something that had just happened to him. The DJ told him to go ahead. The caller said he'd been driving along the Karak highway. It was late. His parents were in the back seat. His wife sat beside him and their baby was sleeping. The road was empty and quiet. He was tired, struggling to stay awake. And then he saw a lorry coming from the opposite direction. But something was wrong. The lorry only had one working headlight, and it was driving on his side of the road. He didn't have time to think. He yanked the wheel, the car swerved. But the lorry appeared again in front of him, same single headlight. He swerved again and again and again. Each time he thought he'd escaped it, the lorry was back. His panic built. He pushed the accelerator harder, trying to outrun it. And then, as he crested a hill, that single headlight appeared directly ahead of him. No time to react. He swerved one final time, violently, and lost control. The car smashed through the highway barrier and fell into the ravine below. The caller paused. The DJ waited. Then, very quietly, the man said, "My parents died in that crash." Another pause. "My wife died. My baby died." His voice didn't break. It was just empty. And then he said, "I died too." The line went dead. The DJ just sat there for a moment. Then he laughed nervously and told his listeners it must have been a prank call, a really convincing one, but a prank nonetheless. He moved on with the show. But the next morning, he saw the newspaper. A car had crashed through the barrier on Karak Highway the night before. It had fallen into a ravine. Inside were an elderly couple, a young husband and wife, and their baby. All 5 were killed. The details matched the caller's story exactly. The DJ rushed back to the radio station, and his hands were shaking as he pulled the recording from the night before. He rewound the call, pressed play, and heard nothing, just static, then silence. The caller's voice, his story, his confession, his final words, none of it had been recorded. The tape was blank. Some people say the man was calling from the wreck itself, that he didn't know he was already dead. Others say he knew exactly what he was doing, that he wanted someone to hear what happened before he moved on. Karak Highway, in fact, has documented dangers. The curves can be sharp, fogs can drop visibility fast, fatigue and speeding can turn a normal drive into a deadly one. And when you're scared, your brain looks for patterns. Every shadow becomes a figure, every sound becomes a warning. Sometimes fear fills in the blanks. But when so many people describe the same experiences, it makes you wonder if there's something to it. So, what do you think? Is the Pontianak real, or is she a story people tell to give tragedy a shape? And if you're driving Karak Highway late at night and your car started to fail and you smelled sweet flowers drifting through the vents, would you dare to venture outside? If you're from Malaysia and you've driven down Karak Highway, if you've heard a different version of the story or experienced something, please leave a comment. I would love to learn more. Okay, that is the end of today's story. I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to this one. I will see you in the next episode. So until then, bye-bye.